and most recently, he was President and CEO of the USO, which does a remarkable job supporting our men and women at war. Their families, are wounded warriors, and families of the fallen. So all told, Sloan has 20 years of private sector and nonprofit experience. That he brings to bear on our ongoing work to build a 21st century VA. And I'm grateful that he is willing to take on this task. I met with Sloan after I met with Rick this morning, and made it clear that reforms should not wait. They need to proceed immediately. I've also asked Rob Neighbors to stay at the VA temporarily too. Help Sloan and the department through this transition, and to complete his own review of the VHA. In the meantime, we're going to look diligently for a new permanent VA secretary. And we hope to confirm that successor and fill that post as soon as possible. We're going to do right by our veterans across the board, as long as it takes. We're not going to stop working to make sure that they get the care. The benefit, and the opportunities that they've earned and they deserve. I said we wouldn't tolerate misconduct, and we will not. I said that we have to do better, and we will. There are too many veterans receiving care right now who deserve all of our best efforts and an honest assessment if something is not working. This week, I visited some of our men and women in uniform at different stages of their service. Our newest Army officers who graduated from West Point. Our troops currently serving in Afghanistan, our veterans and our military families at Arlington. And what I saw is what I've seen in every single service member, veteran, and military spouse that I have had the privilege to meet: a selfless, clear-eyed commitment to serving their country the best way that they know how. They're the best that our country has to offer. They do their duty. They expect us to do ours. So, today, I want every man and woman who served under our flag to know whether your tour has been over for decades. Or it's just about to end. We will never stop working to do right by you and your families. Let me take a couple questions. Leo Shane from Military Times. Question: Mr. President, what changed in your opinion of Secretary Shinseki in the last few days? You had said you had confidence in him, even him coming in today and saying it was time for him to resign. What made the difference in your mind? President Obama, Rick's judgment. I think his belief that he would be a distraction from the task at hand. Which is to make sure that what's broken gets fixed so that his fellow veterans are getting the services that they need. I want to reiterate, he is a very good man. I don't just mean he's an accomplished man. I don't just mean that he's been an outstanding soldier. He's a good person who's done exemplary work on our behalf. And under his leadership, we have seen more progress on more fronts at the VA and a bigger investment in the VA than just about any other VA secretary, cut veterans' homelessness by 24%. Brought in folks who had been exposed to Agent Orange who had been waiting for decades to get. The services and benefits that they had earned, making sure that post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury was dealt with in a serious way, making sure we had facilities for our women vets. Who all too often weren't receiving the kind of specialized services that they needed. So he's been a champion of our veterans. And where there's problems, he has been ready and willing to get in there and fix them. So with the disability backlog that had shot up as a consequence of the admission of the Agent Orange veterans, as well as making it easier to apply for post-traumatic stress disorder disability claims when it spiked. He went at it in a systematic way, and we've now cut it by 50% over the course of the last year or again so. He's not adverse to admitting where there's a problem and going after it. But we occupy a not just an environment that calls for management fixes. We've also got to deal with Congress and you guys. And I think Rick's judgment that he could not carry out the next stages of reform without being a distraction himself. And so my assessment was, unfortunately, that he was right. I regret that he has to resign under these circumstances, but I also have confidence in Sloan. And I share Rick Shinseki's assessment that the number one priority is making sure that problems get fixed so that if there's a veteran out there who needs help that they're getting a schedule and they're able to. Come in and see a doctor, and that if there are facilities that don't have enough doctors or do not have enough nurses or do not have enough space, That information immediately gets in the hands of decision makers. All the way up to me and all the way to Congress, so that we can get more resources in there to help folks. And that seems to be the biggest problem. I think that's the thing that offended Secretary Shinseki the most during the course of this process. He described to me the fact that when he was in theater, he might have to order an attack just based on a phone call from some 20-something-year-old corporal. And he's got to trust that he's getting good information and it's life or death. And I think he is deeply disappointed in the fact that bad news did not get to him. And that the structures weren't in place for him to identify this problem quickly and fix. It. His priority now is to make sure that happens. And he felt like new leadership would serve our veterans best. And I agree with him. Phil Mattingly. Question, thank you, Mr. President. Based on the audit, at least the early stage audit the Secretary presented to you. Is there a sense that there was criminal wrongdoing? And I guess more broadly, how much responsibility do you personally bear? As this being an issue you campaigned on and cared about deeply, you said. Cared about deeply during your administration now that we're at this point? President Obama, well, I will leave it up to the Justice Department to make determinations in terms of whether there's been criminal wrongdoing. In terms of responsibility, as I've said before. This is my administration, I always take responsibility for whatever happens. And this is an area that I have a particular concern with. This predates my presidency. When I was in the Senate, I was on the Veterans Affairs Committee. I heard firsthand veterans who were not getting the kinds of services and benefits that they had earned. And I pledged that if I had the privilege of serving as Commander-in-Chief and President, that we would fix it. The VA is a big organization that has had problems for a very long time in some cases. Management problems, in some cases, funding problems. And so what we've tried. To do is to systematically go after the problems that we were aware of and fix them. And where we have seen our veterans not being properly served, whether it was too many homeless veterans, or a disability claims process that was taking too long, we would go at it and chip away at it and fix it. When it came to funding, we've increased funding for VA services in an unprecedented fashion. Because we understood that it's not enough just to give lip service to our veterans. But not being willing to put our money where our mouth is. And so what I can say confidently is that this has been a priority, it's been a priority reflected in my budget. And that in terms of managing the VA, where we have seen a problem, where we have been aware of a problem, we have gone after it and fixed it, and have been able to make significant progress. But what is absolutely clear is this one, this issue of scheduling. is one that the reporting systems inside of the VHA did not surface to the level where Rick was aware of it or we were able to see it. This was not something that we were hearing when I was traveling around the country, the particular issues of schedule. And what we're going to have to do, part of the review is going to have to be to see how do we make sure that we get information about systems that aren't working. I just was talking to Rob Neighbors, and he described to me, for example, just in very specific detail. How in some of these facilities you've got computer systems for scheduling that date back to the 90s. Situations in which one scheduler might have to look at 4 or 5 different screens to figure out where there's a slot and where there might be a doctor available. Situations in which they're manually passing requests for an appointment over to somebody else, who's then inputting them. Right? So you have in many cases old systems, broken down systems. This is stuff that is eminently fixable, but we've got to know about it. And the big concern that I've got, and what I'm going to be interested in finding out, is how is it that in a number of these facilities, if, in fact, you have veterans who are waiting too long for an appointment. That information didn't surface sooner so that we could go ahead and fix it? One last point I want to make on this: when veterans have gotten access to the system, the healthcare itself that they are receiving has gotten high marks from our veterans service organizations and the veterans themselves. So I think it's important to keep in mind that what the review indicates so far, at least, is that there have been great strides made in the actual care provided to veterans.